will take the effects off just to be... I don't want to, though. And it's a very focused vintage sound. That's an amazing chord. Let me show you that.
I love that chord.
You can leave this here if you want.
Hey, welcome to Tim and Pete's Guitar Show. We're going to be joined in a little bit by our good buddies Matt Scannell and Gil Yaron, a fantastic guitar builder. So it's an exciting episode. What we wanted to start off with today, in the episode with Justin Derico, we did a little jam at the beginning of the episode, and there were some really great comments from you guys about the kind of our different styles, and when we were just kind of improvising, it was just really off the cuff, that whole thing. But some of the comments that I loved the most were about your playing.
Thank you.
And about your melodic sense and just the things that you're coming up with off the top of your head, or so it seems. And I actually used you as an example recently in one of my Wednesday Q&A episodes, where somebody was saying, "What do you think about when you're soloing?" And I was talking about you, and it seems like the goal is to like have an idea, come into your head that maybe you're singing through the guitar. I mean, this is at least how I think about it.
Yeah.
Like singing through the guitar, and it instantly sort of comes out through your fingers and ends up coming out as notes. Like that's the flow. And I'm trying to get closer and closer to that place as best I can, but I feel like you're a real master of that. And some of the things that you played were so cool in that Justin Derico jam that we did. So,
well, let's say maybe there's 6 things I think about or subconsciously think about when I play.
Yeah.
3 of them might be just pentatonic blues, melodies that might be nursery rhyme simple.
Wow.
And then chord-based arpeggios, which are just little pieces of arpeggios.
Okay.
And these things are all kind of bridges to each other as I play.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I would demonstrate now if you want to just play the chords, and I'll go after it if you want.
So it was basically, and for those of you that want to follow along at home, it's A minor to C to G to D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic.
Thanks.
So I heard a little bit of all those approaches that you were talking about in there.
Yeah, I was probably exaggerating a few just to make a point. I mean, so if I'm here and you're playing the A minor, I know you're headed to D. Wow. To me, that's a piece of an A minor, even though it doesn't have a third in it.
Right, A minor 7 really, right?
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a Billy Gibbons thing, that kind of thing.
Close intervals with a little bit of dissonance.
Yeah. So what I see is the D7 that's right above it. That's just 2 little pieces of arpeggios.
Yeah.
Pieces of chords that I turn into, some of the vocabulary. Sometimes when I go outside, I say to myself, "Oh, I got to get back inside," and so immediately afterwards I'll go. Just go to pentatonic blues, and it's kind of dancing between the 2 concepts that hopefully keeps it interesting. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I love that kind of thing. When I think in the solo that I played, so over the A minor, I like to do the kind of, like the 9 is a fun one for me.
Me too.
Then bring it back around. So that's a fun. Yeah. The 9 and the 6, right? In any kind of way.
Yeah. And the 6 in this case is the primary change when it goes to D.
Right.
So I do that. I kind of overuse that a little bit when I'm any A minor to D kind of progression.
Yeah.
I rely. I'm constantly grabbing the, that thing. And I used the 9ths too when I went with that Wes Montgomery thing. It's like
so cool. Beautiful. And that just, it's like there's so much melody going on there that The neat thing is that if you just stick with the blues or whatever, just stick within those parameters, you miss out on all that beautiful sort of modal color that you can, right?
Yeah, and for me, it makes the blues playing more refreshing when you come back to it.
Yeah.
So it's, one of the things about Scott's playing is that he keeps returning to the blues. We interviewed Scott Henderson, and he keeps returning to the blues no matter what he does, and I'm a fan of that. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about the line that you did where you did kind of like a chordal, almost arpeggiated thing with some of the close intervals? It was after the octave.
Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like a kind of a, I can almost sing that.
Yeah, is it down here?
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so... That's almost pure arpeggio and chord-based playing.
That's very nice too. So moving, what's that?
That's something that I've been doing for a long time, where I literally drag myself into a new position.
Okay.
In between all the phrases. So let's say I just choose my third finger on one string,
Okay.
and then I drag it up 3 frets, drag it up 2 frets. Same thing here. So my hand is always in a new position. And I can stop anywhere along the way and get off the train and hang out and play. So, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's something I really like to do. Just because in the middle of the phrase my hand has moved and the listener doesn't really know that, but it puts me in a new spot. So if I go up, I'm in a new place, I can go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
My biggest takeaway from our jam with Justin was when a camera turns on or I'm live in front of an audience, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't mind if I do make a mistake, but I'm going to try and not make a mistake. And so that leads me to kind of play a little bit under my ability, and it leads me to be a little safe at times. And I think all three of us, we held our ground, so to speak, as soloists. But Justin, his reach, while holding his ground and not making a mistake.
Yeah.
That was my biggest education about that, is that it's one thing to be a great guitar player, but to have the poise and the confidence and the steadiness
to go for
in
it.
frund of cameras, in front of an audience, to go for it and go that hard and go that far.
But I was blown away by that too.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I think a lot about when I get in that headspace, the guy that I think about a lot these days is Jack White. Sometimes when you're on stage or in a session, the tone's not right, or your headphone mix is wrong, or your in-ear mix is wrong on stage, you can tend to go to a dark place and not be in the zone. So I think about Jack White because the first time I really started seeing him as sort of a role model for just letting it go and just doing what's important, which is performing and rocking, don't worry so much, was during the It Might Get Loud movie with Jimmy Page. And
He
talks about putting, in one part about putting the piano. He's like, if I know it takes me this long to get from the piano to the lead vocal mic or whatever it is, that he says if it's it takes me 3 seconds to do it, I'll put it another foot away so that he makes it harder on himself. So he's like, it makes me like perform, and I loved that. I was like, wow,
really interesting.
Probably not a guy that worries about having the best action on his guitars. And about like it's got to fight him a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to remember to look at a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is just energy. What kind of energy are you putting out? What kind of emotion, and how are you reaching people?
Right.
And it's easy to get caught up in little things when it's really something much bigger.
Right. And I remember Warren Haynes saying once, mistakes are opportunities.
Yeah. I almost like it when I make a mistake, because then I'm free and I don't have to worry about it anymore. When I would do shows, let me one clam, please, early. I just do one clam, then it's like, okay. It's done.
And
it's
the stage
out there.
Didn't fall down or whatever. Everything's still okay.
Everybody's still smiling,
When I played in Japan this summer, did the big show that I did with Yoshi Nagabuchi at Fuji, I got on stage and we started playing, and I think that I screwed up the second chord. And I thought, in my mind, I went there, I was like, oh, well, we got that out of the way.
Exactly.
So, like, when you're in a session, and you're doing what you do on a daily basis, and you're playing with all these other great musicians and stuff. And where do you go mentally with like that kind of? Is it?
Well, it's exactly what you're talking about. But I feel safe in that situation, and indeed, people. I think after about 1990, people wanted their guitar players to actually play with reckless abandon and have happy accidents and be fearless and make mistakes because it's all fixable.
Right.
So if I do a track and I'm reaching and I make a couple of mistakes, I know, especially now in 2016, it's the easiest thing in the world to repair or choose another part or bring over another part. So it's actually exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I feel that in the studio more than anything because everything is forgivable.
Everything's forgivable.
To a point. I mean, they want you to have it together. And if I make too many clams, it's going to distract the drummer and bass player.
Right.
So there is a point. You do have to be reliable.
I see.
But people want guitarists to take risks.
Yeah.
And they want to see happy accidents. If you make mistakes and you're reaching, they want that more than anything.
Well, I guess, I mean, these are the kinds of things that musicians just didn't worry about so much back in the day. I mean, so many of the great recordings are full of mistakes and errors and things that we can't imagine being any other way. Now we just hear them as part of but when you really listen, go, wow, that was like the guitar's a little out of tune or somebody's a little out of time, but it's so cool.
And I think the best studio players throughout history were just not worried. They were not worried. I mean, they were just going, here, this is my thing. Oops, oh, no problem. It's my thing. Oops, no problem.
Right.
You know?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I was telling a story to some friends last night. I was hanging out with Lizzie and Joe from Hailstorm.
I met them.
And such a cool band. And we were talking about like kind of our formative years and things that we learned. And I was telling the story about going all the way back to MI when I went there. And Tommy Tedesco used to come in and still do seminars and stuff, which is, it's a long time ago now. But this knowledge, coming from that, I mean, just anything I could garner from when he was talking was so fascinating. And one of the things that he talked about, and I loved this, was he held up a pick and he said, see this is an employment insurance. And he didn't play with his fingers, I guess, and I never knew that, but he just,
didn't know that either.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know how to do it, and I play everything with a pick. So even nylon string guitar or anything, he would always use a pick. And he played, banjo, mandolin, like all these different instruments, tuned them all like a guitar, and just like did what put him in the zone to feel comfortable. And I was so fascinated by that. He said, yeah, everything's in guitar tuning. And he had really cool little stories about sort of little fibs that he told about certain styles or things, and he said, I went and studied this in Spain with this teacher, and he was, and then the producer would go to the next guy, he said, and say, hey, did you know Tedesco's a master of the such and such style, which was just totally him messing around and having a good time with it, But he said, yeah, basically tuned it all like a guitar, played with a pick, and did what I had to do to feel comfortable. So on this board that you have here, which is your super cool small board, that maybe this would this be the board you take like local sessions?
Yeah, it's the B board, but it ends up being the A board a lot because it goes in the trunk of my car.
You've got a few varieties of overdrive flavors on here. One of them being your own signature Tim Pierce pedal that we talked about in the episode with Justin. But you've also got a fuzz and the Noble's overdrive, I think it's called.
The ODR1, which is a I think John Shanks gave me this one. I tend to mention John in every episode. I might as well continue that tradition.
We love John.
It's very, very, this is a vintage one, and it's very, very natural sounding. If you just experiment with 2 or 3 distortion and boost pedals, you can use them together.
Get a nice blend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't load up or collapse. At a certain point it does, but especially like something like this. And this is the Bradshaw Boost, which is basically a micro amp. Use it all the time. The best way to just blow up the input of an amp. And I think I've talked about that before. What I like distortion-wise is not really distortion. Overdrive-wise, it's not really overdrive. It's just the pedal that actually just explodes the input of the amp. Now I'm remembering, I need to give Dave Phillips credit for this because he routed this stuff and because he builds these pedal boards for guys like us every day of the year.
Right.
He did it right.
And then, so the swollen pickle is kind of like the extra element here of grind.
Yeah, it's like... To me, it's like a really kind of high-tech Big Muff. It really sounds warm. And I have a lot of George's pedals, way huge. I've known George since forever. George reminded me the other day he used to move my gear.
Really?
He used to work at my cartage company and move my gear. And
George Trips.
Yeah, George Trips.
Super cool designer.
Yeah, super cool designer. Way huge, Dunlop. And a lot of the like landmark stuff for Line 6, too. mean, I've liked every version of the Big Muff ever made. I've never been picky. Every one, I would go. Sometimes I just go buy one and put it on my pedal board at a music store, and it always sounded great to me.
Yeah,
I love Big Muffs, and this reminds me a lot of that.
But Big Muffs work well with buffered guitar signals too, right? Which is nice because a fuzz face or anything kind of germanium is always.
They get killed, don't they?
Well, it just sounds terrible compared to whereas
the way it's supposed to sound.
Yeah, it's supposed to sound, and so that's a good tip actually out there. If you guys you got to be careful with certain germanium, both treble boosters and fuzzes. It's like on a pedal board, if they're germanium and you've got any kind of buffer in front, it's not sounding right. So that's always a kind of an issue. But whereas a Big Muff, you can totally get away with.
And then, other stuff, the M5 is a great thing. I mean, the things I love about it are the tremolo, the vibrato, and the reverb. And you might be using tremolo. I might be using tremolo from here, but it's nice to have two pedals that do the same thing sometimes, because then you can quickly go from one rate to another rate, or one thing to another. Also, it's rare, but these days somebody might ask me for a phaser or a flanger, and it's, I don't use them enough to actually put on the board, but there's one in there, and I can fire it up, and it sounds good. Also, the Tri-Stereo Chorus Simulators is a good chorus. It's a pretty good workhorse, the M5.
Yeah, I used an M9 for quite some time. They're just really good workhorses.
Really good workhorse. And then the Blue Sky by Strymon, it's a beautiful sounding reverb. And very, very easy to quickly manipulate. All the
reverb one could want.
Beautiful. I mean, just somehow the way, the way the guitar and distortion hits it, it's really, really good. The Eventide H9, kind of my wild card. The thing about the H9 to me that blows me away, just turning it on, the guitar sounds more hi-fi. And it's amazing sometimes, especially for clean single line stuff. It almost makes single line stuff sound bigger. Now, there are times when you want your guitar to sound more lo-fi, but this thing, it almost brings more size. The fidelity is so good going through it. And the choruses and the reverb.
That's an interesting sound there. I found some great sounds on that thing. I mean, I use it. I've got a Strymon.
Don't you have two of these on your pedal board?
I do. So the thinking behind that for me was with what I was doing at the time, I was performing with Don Henley, and I did some things with harmonizers that, like for some of the harmonized lines that were Eagle songs. So I wanted to have one that was a reverb primarily, and then one that was doing some pitch shifting. So I was like, well, I need two. It's a little bit overkill. In retrospect, I could probably get away with one, no problem. And I'm actually building another pedal board, a smaller board right now with just one on it. But it is neat having two, because you can do. I mean, they're kind of like the M5 in many ways, where it's just like a workhorse that you can use for anything. And it's super high quality. The naming the presets on your phone too with the app that they've got is to the fact that you don't got to scroll through and scroll. M whatever scroll looking for when you're naming a preset. It's just so fast to be able to type it in and then store it. I haven't gotten into barely any of the like some of the more out stuff that
Black Hole, I had the big one, the Space, and the Black Hole on that's amazing. Black Hole is good in here too. It's just this beautiful big ambient. You almost need to have very few elements on the track to use it, because you want to be able to hear all that reverb. So it almost has to be kind of solo guitar or 3-piece or something like that, because it's so long.
So Black huge. I like to use that kind of stuff when I'm like, if you're playing through it and doing that in the back of the track, that kind of thing, where and it's just a wash of a.
You can't have a pedal board, Pete. Only I can have a pedal board.
That's okay.
Now, he didn't bring his pedal board today, that's all.
I'll play dry.
Yeah. It's Pete's drive-by today. So, the Echo Park is something I use a lot. And it's the Regeneration is so musical.
Yeah. Beautiful filtering.
It's lo-fi, it's dark, it lasts forever. So this thing, I don't use it all the time, but when I want a really long regeneration, I I'm hooked on it. I really am hooked on it.
I used one for a long time with when I was out with Chris Cornell. That was the delay on my board, and I was blown away by the modulated analog delay. It's kind of memory man-ish, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like really good.
Yeah. And it disappears under your signal really nicely. You can be playing and it's back kind of once removed from the actual, so it doesn't get in the way.
Yeah. And it's true. It's like pitch vibrato on the analog delay in that, right? Like it's not a chorus thing; it's vibrato, isn't it? Which is kind of what you.
Yeah, and that's George Tripp's. You know, I mean, he was part of a team, but he designed that.
So, that's so cool.
That's one of the reasons it's great.
Yeah.
And then moving on, the equalizer. This is basically for you guys. This is a great overdrive. I mean, it's pretty. Let me turn off the reverb, but this thing, it's just another overdrive.
It's great.
And a good one, you know, or a boost. You gotta hand it to Boss.
Once again, you're blowing up the front end of the amp, and the amp's doing the work, just kicking the crap out of it, which is great. Yeah, great. That's a killer pedal to have in any arsenal, I think. I like the Boss ones are great, and the MXR 10 band is another one.
Really, I've not tried that.
Yeah, it's killer. It's just like the same. It's a little bigger is the only thing. This is nice because it's nice and compact. But the MXR 10 band is terrific to have on a board. It works well in some loops too, like the loop of an amp to kind of fine tune the tone, or if you're using like a load box type setup or any kind of speaker simulator setup, having one of those I find, or like a pedal like this in line that you can kind of fine tune.
Maybe dial out a little top end you don't want, a little harshness here or there, bring in some fatness. I get it. Yeah, I see. Yeah, a couple more. The Keeley compressor. I'm really dumb about compressors, but to me they.
I totally am.
I just
attack, release. I'm tuning out.
What was it? I remembered. I learned last week what attack and release were. Are they opposite of what The thing about a compressor like this is, if I'm playing an arpeggio, and I'm recording.
Yeah.
Live, it's not as crucial. But if I'm recording and I play an arpeggio, it brings all the notes closer up to the front, so you hear them all better.
Yeah.
Everything's more even, so they can actually turn the part down. It takes off the transients and makes everything fat around it. So it's actually a really great thing to use. I mean, they're both good sounds, but when you're recording, it can really bring it into the forefront.
Sure.
And make everything more even and fatter. So.
That sounds great. Yeah, it's the Keeley 4 knob, right?
Yeah,
that sounds really cool. They make terrific compressors. I've got one of their GC2s, which is like a little miniaturized sort of DBX style compressor, from what I understand, on a board. And it's a 3-knob thing. It's so easy. And I'm like you. I don't want to deal with too many knobs on a compressor. Just turn it up and.
Help. It's like, please help me.
please help me to make everything linear. And I always say it makes me sound better than makes everything easier to play. That's what I find easier. Like on a clean sound, it gives you some of the qualities of if you, as though you were overdriven, even though you're not.
What I try and do with a Leslie pedal is I constantly switch the speed on and off, so it's constantly getting faster and slowing down. To me, that's the whole ball game. If I'm constantly changing the rate, it's never sitting in any particular position.
Yeah.
And then the slow speed is really good too.
Yeah, it's like it's tough to get away. Well, I hear it more in music these days, chorus, but I actually people aren't as afraid to use it anymore. But it's like the more organic way to kind of get it.
Yeah, this is sometimes it's much easier for people to accept a Leslie sound in place of a chorus. Well, that's okay. Now I'm nervous.
Well, you can say, hey, it's Tim and Pete Show, and we were here with you. Say it, because you say your name.
Hey, welcome to Tim and Pete's Show. We're here with this amazing guitar maker,
Gil Yaron.
Beautiful, Gil Yaron. And he's going to tell us all about these guitars. They're spectacular. They're different. They're They're crazy. So.
And of course, we've been joined by the fantastic Matt Scannell as well, and we're happy to have you here.
Hi guys.
Yes, sir.
So psyched to be here with you guys. You kidding me? This is great.
How do you set it up from your shop, generally?
Well, the first thing I do with the guitar is try to figure out who's going to play it,
Right.
what he wants. It starts with selecting the wood so I can get a guitar's voice to match the needs. I mean, if you want something rockish with a lot of oomph on the lower end, it will be a totally different guitar than something that will be used for, let's say, blues, warm blues, when you mostly be using it for clean or edgy tone. You can use the same guitar for both types of music, or for a wider range of styles. But normally, if you can afford it, you will have a few guitars
Right.
that you will use in different situations.
Sure.
So the idea behind this particular model was to base it on a burst, on a 59 Les Paul, but still allow a lot of adjustment. The first thing I did here was to add the filler without sacrificing the center. This thing is all mahogany, and it's actually a part of the same blank. Okay, I cut it, I route it in a kind of the shape of a horseshoe, okay, around this area. So this will add more bloom in general to the sound. To capture that, you'll need pickups that can do the job in capturing those frequencies, but you still want to control them.
What do you call this?
This is a Bone H.
Bone H, okay.
For
So
hybrid.
I can remember
Yeah, it's just a short for
contemplate.
hybrid.
All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you bet.
It has a single magnet for each pole, plus a bar magnet that runs in the middle, just like in a PAF.
Right. Okay.
This pickup is not supposed to work at all, because the magnets on the poles are shooting upside down,
Okay.
and this one is shooting in a 90-degree angle.
Right.
Kind of kills it. But for some reason, and this happens a lot, when you try to be very accurate and plan things this way, it never works. When you do things in a weird, way, you do something that is not supposed to work. It's, oh my God! Yeah. So you get places that you don't normally get with the regular stuff.
Yeah.
So I mostly fail when I try this stuff.
Me too.
Yeah, man. I know that feeling.
A lesson for all of us.
Yeah, I mostly fail. It's just testing.
Yeah.
But I know that, let's say, 1 out of 20 tests will get me, something.
Yeah.
Something I can start investigating. When they say bone age, it doesn't necessarily mean that all bone ages are, the same.
Right.
Okay? They're not supposed to be. I mean, it's a guitar.
Yeah,
I mean,
course.
consistency is something good, but really, is it? And because I mean, that's life. I do my best to match everything.
Of course. Yeah.
But sometimes I let I
Magic
flow with the
Nature takes
instrument,
course. Yeah.
and whatever happens. I set the pickups in different ways in final setup.
Right.
Okay, I know that this guitar is supposed to sound within certain limits, and it helps me a lot. This is something I cannot do with a regular humbucking pickup or any other pickup, because the only thing I can adjust is the height of the pole. But with those pickups, I can do anything I want. This helps me, not necessarily the player. It helps me to set up the guitar, so when I ship it, I know that it will be in perfect balance. I'm not saying the best, sounding tool for the guy who's going to play it. He can still adjust whatever he wants. But for me,
You can shape it to the actual wood that you've created.
exactly. So this is how I see this instrument. I mean, on your Bone One, this one has the air gap 1 pickups.
Yes.
Right. So this
Hanging
is
right over there.
yeah. So that one has the same pickups, but the adjustment is done from the bottom, because I wasn't thinking that the player needed to mess with that.
Yeah.
But rethinking the whole thing, I said, why not?
Yeah.
So this is now adjustable from the top.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool. Well, having owned both the Bone One and that LP style guitar over there, I will say that your guitars, I mean, coming to me, they were both like incredible balance, even with the traditional style pickups, incredibly balanced from the rhythm to the middle to the lead position. Like, totally, all 3 sounds totally usable, which I don't usually find.
Yeah.
Like,
I have one of those LP styles too that Gil made.
Yeah.
And it's pretty shocking how just of a piece it felt. It didn't feel like, man, that's a jagged edge there, or
or woolly in the neck.
It just felt like you had thought it through.
It does what it's supposed to do.
You don't need to re-EQ the amp, for the pickup.
But that's right.
I went to the neck pickup.
That's what sometimes happens with those guitars for me is, man, the neck pickup sounds nice and chimey and articulate and clear.
Yeah.
And then the bridge pickup is way too bright.
Yeah, and I always look for a bridge pickup that is not nasal sounding.
Mm-hmm.
Just nice and open.
Yeah. So we need to fire up an overdrive here.
Let's do it. I know. We'll use the Tim Pierce overdrive. Okay, shall we contrast with this one or something? I'll hand you this. Sounds amazing.
What do you think? Do you want to play?
I'll play a little bit.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful guitar.
It sustains for days. You could go get a bite and come back and still be going.
Still be hearing that one.
It's so beautiful. Pretty.
Sounds beautiful, man.
So nice.
That's crazy. When you went to that middle position there, I wasn't expecting that kind of articulation, that kind of like chime.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising.
It really is chiming. Play that, but that's my song for that thing in the middle. You know, is like if it'll do that.
Yeah.
And if it has that kind of like a big telly.
Yeah. Totally.
Like the best telly you ever heard.
Yeah. That's great, man.
Sounds great, Pete.
Nice playing, sir.
You go. Thank you, though.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
There's like a standard. That's so fun to play, really.
Sounds great, man. Sounds great, man.
Your hands sound great.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Should we switch it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
This one's killer.
So this is the straight bone 59 then. This one.
Yeah, that's good.
Good contrast.
Yeah, it's a good contrast because this is an offspring of that one.
Okay.
That's just meaty and throaty.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a great big single coil.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time messing around with that stuff, especially like when I'm tracking to try to get like arpeggiated parts to speak out or to sit back a little bit. You know, just take a little bit of the chime off, and sometimes they do just get kind of muffly and dead. That sounds killer, man.
This one is a new thought that I had. If you look at the 50s Les Pauls, which is the base for everything here, you cannot really compare between the earlier ones and the later ones because the pickups are so different. So unless you take a good set of PAFs and put them on a, let's say, a 54 or 53 gold top, you can't really tell. And even so, it takes a long time to move the pickups. My thought was that I personally love the earlier guitars in the 50s as far as the acoustic properties, the tonality. And trying to dig into this, I found out that the neck angle was lower, okay? And the
like
maple...
what years? Like
well, it changed. It shifted between 52 through 53, 54.
Okay.
And it kind of ended up at over 4 degrees, about 4.1, 4.2. It varies because it was all handmade and they changed it as they built them. But it started under 3 and it gradually went up to 4 something. Now, somewhere along the way, I think they just hit the magic spot. And those are my favorite Les Pauls, which is 53s, 54s. But you can't really listen to them with PAFs because they don't have the PAFs, they have the P90s. But acoustically, they got this thing that I love. It's something sweet. And I know many people like the 59s, but I think they love the 59s for what they are. They are meaner. They are better for the hard rock that developed over the 70s, and everybody grabbed those guitars because they were experimenting with overdrive. Okay, so this was a great tool to do the job, and it had the humbucking pickups on it. So most players will not use the earlier ones. So I think we missed something along the way. So my thought was try and understand why those earlier ones acoustically, no amp, sound better to me. My conclusion was that the lower neck angle and the thinner maple cap, maple top. My thought was that it has to do with the relationship between the maple and the mahogany due to the neck angle. So it's not that much because of the neck angle. I mean, 3.5 and 3.9 degrees will not make a big tone difference, if at all. But we need to think about the wood. I mean, the tone is in the wood. So if it has a lot to do with the wood, then the ratio must be it. So this was my first take on this. You can see how low the ABR sits. Okay. And this, for me, represents the early mid 50s construction.
less angle in there.
Less angle. The maple is thinner. Now it's not just thinner in the center as it was with the earlier ones. I also made it thinner in general. Okay, you can't really see that, but you can hardly see the maple.
Sure.
Through the cutaway, like you can see on the 59.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, it has about 20-25% less maple on the top. So when you just strum it, it's round, it's sweet, and this is what I wanted to get out of the instrument before I even got to the pickups. My second mission was, like always, matching a good set of pickups to this guitar. What I did is I used as a bass the early the 57 PAFs that I'm making. So these are basically PAFs, nothing special about them. They're not even close to the air gaps or anything. simplicity. Every guitar that I built for a client, I think about the client.
Right.
I know the client because I go back and forth all the time asking him questions, trying to understand what he wants, because it's very hard when you do custom work.
Well, when I bought a guitar from you originally, right, I heard about your guitars from Charlie in Texas, Charlie Daughtry, right?
Daughtry.
And I ordered this guitar like sight unseen. We'd never met.
Right.
And that guitar that I got from you showed up, and I pulled it out of the case, and I was like, oh my God, you know, from the first time I plugged in, it was absolutely just a magical, like this is, it exceeded my expectations. I was so happy.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was so wonderful to get it. And it was, we had this conversation so many times about tone and about, you know, about what, just over email really, but about what I wanted and it was exactly what I wanted. You know, it came and it was just so I know you had thought about all the things we talked about and geared it towards what I'd said and it was everything I could have hoped for. So honestly,
amen. That's cool.
Yeah. That's a chapter, you know, on the path.
And you're still moving forward.
It's so fun for me to meet, you know, Gil and because I've had, you know, I own one of the instruments and to be able to sort of feel your work, you know, what your work has done for me and allowed me to express as a player. But it's wonderful for me to hear you going, yeah, it could be better. It could be better, you know, like that's wonderful. Like we're not complacent. I want to get better at what I do.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, it's learning. You know, it's just learning the old ones and see if they can be, you know, replicated. But this is not. I mean, this is not the end of the line. This is just the start because.
Totally.
I mean, there's no point in in making something that already exists.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right.
You see,
Further it.
it's not making guitars, it's trying to make them better. Once I will not be able to make them better, this will be the day that I will stop making guitars.
Well, don't figure out don't do that. Don't do that. Don't achieve that. Can I just mention one thing here that I think is so cool is the way this neck heel feels in my hand.
Yeah.
Like I love that as opposed to that kind of ramp.
Blocky
There's like a
thing.
block, and I don't, you get around it, but it's a thing you have to get around.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing to not have to get around it.
It
You know?
feels really
Right.
good.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's a very small change. I mean, I wasn't feeling very comfortable carving the entire thing here like modern guitars because a lot of things happen right here.
Oh, really?
And in the headstock, as far as tonality, when you shave this area, this is where the
Just that
neck
little bit of
meets the
difference.
body.
Allows your palm.
If you're going to shave this area too much,
Yeah.
if you're going to shave too much of it, it will be very comfortable, but you're going to lose a lot.
Yeah.
Can you adjust the truss rod without taking the pickup? How do you?
Oh yeah,
adjust
sure.
It's a little wrench, right?
Yeah, you can use basically anything, a little wrench or
Right in that
whatever.
gap.
Oh,
there.
cool.
Screwdriver.
Yeah.
There's a wheel inside.
Oh, okay.
If you see, those rings are slightly wider.
Oh, I see
than-
him. Yeah.
I notice how we all kind of gravitate towards the neck when we play, just because it's that deep, fat, you know. And a lot of times when I record people, they only want the bridge.
Yeah,
you know, so
right.
It's like I make peace with the bridge all the time. So I hear warmth. There is warmth there.
I have to ask Gil to tell us a story, just really quickly, if you don't mind. You have to tell us a story about going to Kalamazoo.
When you try and replicate something that somebody else built 60 years ago, you can usually look at the guitar if you got the original in hand, and it makes sense how they did this, how they did that, because it was common knowledge. And most manufacturers back then did about the same thing. But when it came to the 59 Les Paul and the insanity of trying to replicate it, I decided just to flow with it and see what happens. I knew there were still a few people in the original factory in Kalamazoo where the original bursts were made up until 1960. The problem is they are very old They still build the heritage guitars, which are awesome. They're not identical to Gibson, but the people are the same people. My problem was that they were very well protected. When you try to get to those people, it's not very easy to get through and really talk to them. They're busy, the younger people are maybe used to, nuts like me trying to ask questions and listening to them, whatever. So it was a no-go. But I couldn't accept the fact that they're there and I'm here meaning Israel at the time, and I just have a few questions. This is all I need to know. How you did this and that. Just tell me how you did it and I'm done with it. And thank you. It was not going to be like that. So I decided to go there. And
just to show up.
And I
love that.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I took a plane. It was a couple of flights. The last flight to Kalamazoo, I was pretty much the only one on the airplane. And when I got to the airport, I was pretty much the only one at the airport. I kid you not. And I went outside. It looked like, a war zone or something because there was nobody there. I just wanted to grab, a taxi or something and get somewhere. So I couldn't find anyone. And I just walked to the nearest hotel and I'm calling the factory and, can I please talk to Marvin Lamb? And Marvin was one of the original builders. So I was very uncomfortable, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable telling you about this right now because this is not exactly me, but I just had to do it. So hey Marv, this is Gil. Remember we talked, and I came all the way from Israel.
No,
and when it's a good time.
Amazing.
Blah, blah, blah. So
it was like
Gil, yeah, it worked like magic, and I knew that he had no clue who I was and whatever. But just mentioning that I came to see him from Israel and I'm at the airport, if somebody will do this to you, you probably behave the same. So it's just it just worked.
You gotta at least see the guy.
Yeah. That's right.
So okay. You know what? Can you come and see me tomorrow early? I start early. What's early? 6. Okay, sure. So I wake up early in the morning, like 5ish. I ordered a cab, and I'm getting to this very looks like an area you don't want to be in when it's dark. Okay, this is the factory. I couldn't see the chimney. Yeah, really rough. And so we got there, and I'm getting into the factory and going to the lower floor. Okay, who are you? I'm Gil from Israel. I came to see Marvin. Yeah. Hold on a second. And they call Marvin. It's the first time I see Marvin Lamb, and he's walking towards me as if I was his lost son or something. He's that he's that nice, and that this is old school people, him and Jim, who
how
also
old would you say they're
80ish and plus probably. Yeah,
80.
Just think about it. They used to work in the original factory.
Yeah.
And he's a mensch, and he builds guitars. He's a builder, and he's doing a great job, and he's a wonderful person. And we just had coffee and started talking. He still had no clue what I was doing there. And I started talking, and I came clean.
Oh, good for you.
All right.
Good for you.
Yeah. It was such a warm. Everything. And
for you.
I just had because. What am I really doing here? It's not that you're senile and that we spoke and you forgot.
Right. Yeah.
It's me, and this is what I need. This is what I'm doing, and I started showing them, him and he called Jim, his other, friend from the Gibson era, and I showed them what I was doing at the time when I investigated this. I did really go into very little details. The drill down was amazing.
But before you continue, they must have. Once again, this could have gone differently. But
totally. Yeah, I could have been on the plane to Israel like 5 minutes later.
When you came clean, but they must have been so flattered that you came and had this respect for them.
Yeah. Now you know what? It's amazing.
At that age,
sure.
For somebody to show up.
Exactly.
I need to talk to you.
You would expect those people to be experienced with dudes like me.
Right.
But this was not the case. They just don't get to talk about this much. And I'm gonna make a long story short. We just spent many hours together, and he went with me throughout the entire operation and answered all my questions. It was so funny because some of the stuff they forgot. So he would say, "Well, we did this and that," and then Jim said, "No, you did it different." "Oh yeah, right, yeah, no," and I would just be a fly on the wall.
That's cool.
And let this go on, and I recorded everything, so I got everything documented.
Wow.
And he showed me how we did some stuff, but they thought, how did they make those necks so great? So I mean, the answer, as it should be, and like it always is, was stupidly simple. They just used the underside of the slack belt sander that they used to do the tops and all the guitars, and he would take a small chair and sit right under it with his hand like that and hold the neck. And he would show me how we did this, and he would just shape it. And then you realize, those necks, I mean, when I measured them, they were never totally straight.
Right.
Never. And they feel so organic because they are not done on a CNC, and they're not done totally straight. It's organic. So I came back home and I set up, the slack machine, and I tried to do the snake, and I sanded part of my hand. Actually, it was right here.
Oh no.
And he told you, right?
And he told, and then he told me, be careful when you do this. So there it is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is a mark for life, but it reminds me of good things, so it's no big
Badge
deal.
of honor right there.
Okay, yeah. So and this is just a fraction. Okay, it's the tip of the iceberg of what happened there. It was wonderful. I will not say that I'm using everything, exactly as it was back in the day, because on those guitars, because this is not a replica. This is my thing. It's based on the thing. So I take what I believe is good and solid and doesn't need to be changed at all, because I wouldn't change anything that works, and just do my thing with the other changes. Or I shape the neck differently today. It's not like that, but I keep in mind what made those necks to be so good, and I replicate it my own way. So if you put your hand on the neck, it's shiny and it's nice, but believe me, it's nothing even close to being very accurately made.
That's cool.
Okay, you can't really feel it, but there's something about the neck that feels good to you. The guitar is not just a magnetic flux being, picking up movement of strings. Right. It becomes a microphone, and the capacitors become microphonic, and they kind of cancel each other, and a lot of, it's the chaos. Yeah. The chaos is what you want to get. You just need to control it a little bit, and make it work for you.
I love that.
Right?
Yes, because when I think about like Jimi Hendrix recording, or I think about chaos.
Absolutely.
Amps up, ripping loud with the fuzz and this controlled chaos.
And he's just kind of like somehow harnessing it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
But becomes sort of this conduit for like some magical thing that couldn't have happened.
Yeah. And then we distill it down to this thing, which is now like an MP3 or something, and listen to it through our phone or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's cool. But there's,
Totally. I remember the first time I played a great 335 and I felt the body shaking in my against my skin, and I thought, this is something else.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Tim and Pete's Guitar Show. Thanks, Gil. Thanks, Matt. This was so much fun.
Sure was.
And it's a great time. What's your website, Matt?
Verticalhorizon.com.
Okay, so go to verticalhorizon.com, check out all that Matt is up to. And Gil, you're
GilYaronGuitars.com.
Thank you. That was a real education, a real pleasure, and these are sonic rainbow guitars.
Thanks for having me.
We're like kids in candy stores today, like totally, it's ridiculous. Please hit subscribe on both of our channels. Come back and see us real soon for more Tim and Pete's Guitar Show. Take it easy. So this is the bolt.
Yeah, it's a great guitar.
Bolt on neck, single coil pickups, totally different animal.
Damn, this dude right here. What the heck's going on with that guy?
It also has this, locking system here.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't go for the back, so it doesn't go around, so it stays in tune. You just drop the bar all the way down, just drop it, and bring it back, and it's in tune.
Wow. Fine, be that way. See if I care.
Nothing.
Wow.